Today on the MrMaple Show podcast, Matt and Tim count down the top 25 dogwoods of 2024. Customer's choice.
Konnichiwa, y'all, and welcome to the Mr. Dogwood Show. It's actually we're going to be talking about dogwoods today. It's the MrMaple Show, but today we're focusing on that one genus that's so interesting. They provide flowers, they provide great tree for the landscape, and today we're going to be all about dogwoods. We're going to go over the customer choice top 25 dogwoods of 2024. You guys love these lists. We do them for maples and conifers and rare plants and ginkgos, so we thought we'd break it down with dogwoods. We've actually had a ton of dogwoods on our website this year. I'm Matt, and this is my brother Tim. We make up MrMaple.com. Be sure to check out MrMaple.com for amazing Japanese maples. But hey, guys, we carry a lot of other cool plants too. That's why we're talking about dogwoods today.
Yeah, that's one of the things that people often don't realize is that we've had one of the largest selections of dogwoods online mail order. We've listed over 80 different varieties of dogwoods on MrMaple.com, and we constantly try to get something new and interesting and focus on those really interesting varieties that collectors will love. And dogwoods are that tree that give you some amazing flowers, but they also just give you a nice structured tree in the landscape and garden.
We're all about them dogs. Let's get into it at number 25, guys. Some amazing plants on this list. So basically all cornus can fall into this category for the list. Today we're talking about Cornus Kousa Aiden's Mint Frost at number 25. Now this is an electric dogwood. You're going to get a white flower with this. It's a Cornus Kousa, so it's a Chinese dogwood. These are going to work zone 6 through zone 8 typically. I've seen people grow them in zone 5, but we typically list them zone 6 through 8. Now, Aiden's Mint Frost is a particularly unique dogwood that has a frosted style variegation over that leaf. So you get this kind of creamy frosted look over top of that dogwood leaf.
For you maple lovers out there, it's the Ukigumo floating clouds of the dogwoods. It's one that shouldn't be overlooked because it's extremely beautiful. It's got that just unique sand dusting variegation across each and every leaf. And it becomes more prominent in the summer, that variegation. When it first leaves out, you may not see the variegation as prominently as it is during the summer, but I've never seen anything quite like it on a dogwood, y'all. I'm really surprised it's not higher up on the list. We've tried to offer it quite frequently on MrMaple.com. Aiden's Mint Frost coming in at number 25.
Really cool plant. I would say this one reminds me a little bit too of Stewartia pseudocamellia puter. I mean, he mentioned Ukigumo. It's a unique style variegation. Like it just has so much extra going on to it. You're going to get more dark green foliage midsummer, typically around 10 to 12 foot in 10 years. So it's a good grower. Can't say enough nice things about it. I think anytime you're getting variegation on a dogwood, I mean, that's super next level. So.
Next up, coming in at number 24, we've got Bob Lipka's introduction. It's Cornus Kousa Kristen Lipka's Variegated Weeper. This is a patented selection that Bob Lipka found. He's the same guy who found Ginkgo grindstone at the fly exit in Ohio.
Passed away in 2024 as well, I believe.
Yeah, good guy. Great guy, good friend of ours. And Kristen Lipka's Variegated Weeper is a weeping, variegated leafed dogwood.
I mean, talk about next level. Like, you just took it up a notch. Again, since it's a Kousa, these are going to work zone 6 through 8. Cool patented plant. Typically 5 to 6 foot tall, maybe 7, 8 feet wide kind of shape to it. I like to stake this one up and get a good central leader going. Again, white flowers to this one. But, guys, you're getting a variegated, weeping Kousa dogwood. So next level of a plant.
And on this variegated Kousa dogwood, you have like a yellow variegation on a green leaf. And with that and that's like a creamy yellow as well, with that variegation and that weeping style, it just adds so much out there in the landscape and garden. And this tree blooms and blooms well. Some of the variegated dogwoods aren't known for blooming extremely well. This one blooms frequently. I've seen it bloom in a 1 gallon. And you've got beautiful white star-shaped dogwood blooms over top of that green leaf with that yellow margin, that weeping habit. Fits in small spaces, fits in a Japanese maple garden really well. Many of the Kousa dogwoods, you want to make sure that you give them plenty of sunlight. that just allows them to really show off in those blooms.
Something else cool about this one, it is a patented plant, but the proceeds and the fees from this go to the Leukemia Lymphoma Research Center, which is pretty cool. So it goes to a good cause every time you're doing this one. Just a great plant, guys. It's really next level. I mean, you're getting a weeping variegated Chinese dogwood, like amazing durability on that, amazing characteristics, flower, and structure. So this one's just so next level. Now, when this one hits some fall color, you can get red and then kind of soft pink as well where the variegation is. So you kind of get a two-tone variegation going on in this one, even in the fall color.
Now, coming in at number 23, we've got a blood twig dogwood. We've got Cornus sanguina compressa, and it is basically the Shishigashira of those blood twig dogwoods. It's got that curling leaf to it, that dark green color, and that really tight, narrow structure that makes this easy to use in the landscape and garden.
One of my favorite. Compressa is underrated. I mean, it's popular in the trade, but it's still underrated. I think it's underutilized. This one's going to work zones 5 through 8. I love that Shishigashira structure to it. I mean, you get that crumpled leaf. I've had amazing red fall color on this tree too. Typically around 6 to 8 foot, maybe 6 foot wide, fairly narrow structure to this one. Just an amazing plant, guys. Durable, heat tolerant, comes back from rooted cuttings, so they don't have to be grafted. I've even used root suckers off this one to get more going. I've had phenomenal fall color where this thing is bold neon red with that crumpled leaf. Just something interesting about it texture-wise. It's kind of got that goblin, that Zelkova goblin feature, that Shishigashira feature, that stumpy, dense, clustered look to it that we love about Makawa Yetsubusa. It's got a lot of that going on for a dogwood.
And it has good red fall color as well, which is really nice. When it comes to a dogwood that provides good texture in the landscape, this is an amazing selection. That texture is very unique, and it's a very landscape-oriented tree because of its narrow structure.
All right, guys, coming in here at number 22, we've got Cornus Kusa Golden Cup. Now, this is a variegated Chinese dogwood with just amazing colors, guys. This one is very next level as well. We do list this one as 5 through 9, but a lot of these will be 6 through 9. I think some of that's semantics. I know a lot of people growing dogwoods in zone 5 for the Kusas. Absolutely next level variegation, though.
Now, the thing that makes Golden Cup stand out from many of the other variegated dogwoods is the fact that it has the golden variegation on the interior part of the leaf with green on the edge of the leaf, which is very unusual and really stands out, gives a unique texture and unique color out there in the landscape. Still gives you some gorgeous white blooms in the summer. Now, Cornus Kusas, they're disease resistant, powdery mildew resistant, anthracnose resistant, and they also bloom after the leaves have come out. So you get a bloom time with Cornus Kusas during those summer months. And this is a variegated Kusa that just gives you some amazing interest spring, summer, and fall, whether it's the foliage or it's the blooms.
10 to 12 foot in, 12 to 15 foot in just a 10-year span. So a vigorous grower as well, partial to full sun. Absolutely beautiful plant. He mentioned, but I love that that's in the eye. I like that the eye is the yellow part. I think it really makes this one stand out and pop a lot. A lot of you agreed with us. It was a popular tree for us in 2024. Now, here's the next one. Moving on here to 21, you got a plant that Tim says to pair with everything, and that's Cornus Kusa Summer Gold.
Hey, now, I'm talking about, when I talk about pair with everything, I'm typically talking about the palmatum. But the Kusa dogwood has yellow in it as well, so it gives you some of that yellow color in the garden. But the yellow and summer gold Kusa dogwood is on the margins of this leaf. So you get a green interior with a thick margin, yellow, golden variegation around the exterior of the leaf.
So Gold Cup and Summer Gold, fun to pair together there because it's the inverse. So you almost get the exact opposite going on, with the eye being the yellow part on the Golden Cup and the eye being the border part on the Summer Gold. Just a beautiful plant, guys. I mean, this one's really showy. I've had great fall colors on this one as well. Partial to full sun, typically around 8 to 10 foot in that 10-year period, so it gets out there nicely too. Not quite as big as the Gold Cup, but pretty good grower. Great structure to it as well. Typically bold reds in the fall, but then it's nice because you get some variation on the variegation.
Now, coming in next at number 20, we have Pam's Mountain Bouquet. And this is a unique Cornus Kousa dogwood that has a bloom that almost looks like a little crown. It is very different. I've never seen any other Cornus Kousa dogwood that has a bloom like Pam's Mountain Bouquet. I've also had many other nurserymen, whether it be from Europe or Dan Himes, were talking to me and they said, have you seen this before? Pam's Mountain Bouquet, look at this bloom. No one's ever seen a Kousa dogwood like this. I'm like, yeah, go to our website. We offer it. I mean, this is a next level Cornus Kousa that's changing the game on what we think about a dogwood bloom.
Now, a lot of these Kousas are going to be similar. Again, this one's zones 5 through 8, partial to full sun. This one's going to be around 12 to 15 feet in a 10-year period. So another good grower gets out there more than a foot of growth a year as it gets established. Guys, beautiful flowers. So this one's really what makes this one next level is that just kind of 4-part flower that has this unique structure to it. The petioles are just beautiful. It kind of curls up, especially in the early part of the season. Just a beautiful white bloom. It's super next level.
Yeah, the blooms can sort of stick together, sometimes the petioles of the bloom, and create this crown-like effect that is just a game changer when it comes to dogwoods. I think that one's going to rise in popularity the more people realize what Pam's Mountain Bouquet is. And I think dogwood breeders will probably be using the genetics from this selection to continue to change what we think about dogwoods.
I mean, I know some dogwood breeders that got it from us, so I would agree. Guys, so many cool plants. Let's listen. I always let people know with the dogwoods and any of our top 25, top 75 list of 2024, they're all subject to the availability. So this is how many we had and how many we sold. Something like Pam's Mountain Bouquet may actually be higher on the list if we had, bigger numbers in it. So it did put up some good numbers, but it's all subjectable to the number we actually had to sell. So that number is interesting. But these are the customer choice. These are actually what sold. Coming here at 19, we've got Cornus Kousa Lemon Ripple, yellow variegated Chinese dogwood.
Now, this is another margined yellow variegation Cornus Kousa. Now,
it's a little wider margin, so this one almost is like the smaller green eye to it.
And one thing I want you to note about many of these variegated dogwoods, especially the yellow variegated dogwoods, is late in the season, the variegation isn't as prominent. So right before fall color, if you're talking like September or October, it's going to be more green, and it's not going to be as prominent. And that's something to note, that it doesn't revert during that time of the season, but you won't notice the variegation as prominently as you will in the spring and midsummer.
The yellow variegation on Lemon Ripple, though, may be one of the strongest. Like, it is one of the more distinctively variegated, especially that early spring. That yellow is neon with the green border. Absolutely love it. It has one of the smaller green borders, so it's one of the most yellow of that variegated kind of stripe style. 12 to 15 foot in 10 years, so it's a vigorous grower as well. We list this one as 6 through 8. Again, subjectable. Some of those Kousas definitely could be in zone 5. A lot of these things, a lot of the zones we base on previous information. So certainly possible to grow this one in zone 5 as well, partial to full sun. Absolutely beautiful plant. Now, with most of our Kousas in a heavy zone 8, like say Atlanta, you'd probably want to give them a little bit of protection from the hot afternoon sun. But most of these are going to do pretty good in milder to temperate kind of climates like Charlotte, North Carolina. They do pretty well even in a good bit of sun.
Coming in next is one of my favorite of the dogwoods at number 18. We've got Cornus Florida, subspecies Urbaniana, the magic Mexican dogwood.
It's a great plant. You might have stole that from me because I would say it was probably my favorite too. I don't know if this one had bigger numbers, it probably would be at the top. People go nuts for this one. I like to describe the flower almost as iris-like. It is so unique. It's got such a great flower. The flower kind of folds back in toward itself. It's a long petiole flower. It's so next level. Now, we actually graph these from one of the best flowering sources. The one where we graph from is there's just several of them at the J.C. Ralston. We graph from the one that has the best blooming structure to it. So this one is a prolific bloomer. They still need to be a couple years old before they bloom. So typically this one blooms at about maybe 6-7 years. Man, such a next level plant, guys. I absolutely love it. This is a Cornus Florida that is a native to North America. Again, the Mexican dogwood, but just such a cool flower. It is beyond next level for me.
Yeah, the way it sort of clusters together, the bloom tips touch in the center, and it creates this sort of round ball-like effect that's open, is extremely ornamental. The bloom has a little bit of a twist to it, kind of like an iris. And that it is so interesting and next level when it comes to dogwoods. And to think this is a native growing Cornus Florida subspecies, essentially, down in Mexico. I mean,
a lot of times when we're producing these, we'll actually graft them onto Cusa, which makes them a little bit more disease resistant too for the rootstock. These are typically going to be about 8 to 10 foot in that 10-year period. So good grower. I think if we had bigger numbers in this, it would be our number one. Like, I wouldn't be surprised in 2025. I know we upped our production on this a couple years ago, and so there'll be 1 gallons coming on. I wouldn't be surprised to see this easily top 5. I
mean, it's crazy to think that we've got such amazing. You think of Mexico, you don't think of such amazing flora. Like, it could be water ornamentals that could grow here in Western North Carolina. The Acer scucha, the Mexican cloud forest maple, and now the Cornus Florida subspecies urbaniana, the magic Mexican flowering dogwood. I mean, just next level trees.
Yeah, a little different on this one. This one's going to work zone 6 through 9. Again, it might work in zone 5. That curl to the leaf, though, was so next level. The possibilities too on this, like the breeding and the things that can be done with this flower, taking it further. Oh my gosh, it's such an exciting plant to look at.
Guys, we're bringing you another Cornus sanguina, those blood twig dogwoods at number 17. But this is one of those blood twig dogwoods that's known for having that bright red bark. This is a red twig dogwood, y'all. And these are amazing winter interests. They're more of a shrub-like tree that grow out there in the landscape. Their bloom is a little bit different. In the springtime, you can get a bloom that is kind of like a yellow-white, very clustered. And it's a clustered bloom, not necessarily your typical dogwood bloom that people think of with the Cornus Floridas and your Cornus Cusas.
A lot of people like to plant these in pairings, so you put several together in one area. They tend to be multi-stem cutback shrubs. These are going to work zones 4 through 7. A great way to grow these is to plant like 4 or 5, though, in a whole mass planting of them and just kind of let them grow and then cut those back so that you're really pushing that new growth. Typically around 6 foot tall, 6 to 7 foot wide. Kind of fills out a really nice structure to it. But what's really popular about this one is those yellow stemmings. I mean, you get some beehoo-like bark on this that really is tipped with some nice red tinges to it as well.
I know that I've seen in this area a lot of times these Cornus sanguina selections like Midwinter Fire with those red twigs being used to sort of control erosion on banks too. Mm-hmm. If you've got a bank that you really want to add some winter interest to, you can plant these Cornus sanguina Midwinter Fires around in clusters around the bank, and they actually produce at their base and will actually get wider and thicker, and they are just an amazing way to have good winter interest, but also a useful plant to use in the landscape.
Absolutely beautiful plant. All right, coming in here at number 16, we're moving along pretty quick on our dogwood list. Now, if you don't see these in stock on Mr. Maple, you can always go to the individual page and sign up to get notified. Most of these come back in pretty big sets, so it's rare we drop these on like limited sales and things. They could happen, but typically you'll find these on our 10 at 10 listings. We had 10 new trees. It's actually 20 every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. So if you see something here you like, sign up to get notified when it's back in stock if it's currently sold out. So coming in here at number 16, we've got Cornus Cusa Rosy Teacups. This is a pink Chinese dogwood that really brings the color.
Yeah, and those colors are large 3-inch pink blooms that are some of the largest of any of those pink blooming dogwoods. It's one of those Cornus Cusa hybrids that was developed by Rutgers University. They've sort of been a game changer in a lot of Rutgers hybrids by creating these trees that are Cornus Cusa mixed with Florida, mixed with Natalia, and playing around and figuring out what can get the biggest blooms, the most beautiful tree, and the tree that's going to provide basically a landscape specimen in the garden.
What sets this one apart is that not only a pink flowering dogwood, which everybody loves. I mean, my grandma was, these were like, when my grandma was alive, like pink dogwoods were the thing, right? And so not only is everybody in the South searching for pink dogwoods, this one has some of the best flower size out there. So you get that 3-inch size flower. It's a beautiful, large flower to it. The tree is typically going to be about 20 foot in a 15-year span. Now, this one's also going to work zone 6 through 8.
And being a Cornus Cusa dogwood, like we mentioned earlier on some of the Cornus Cusa selections, they bloom in the summer. So you get the blooms during the summer months, and it will often coat the tree with so many blooms that it's difficult to see the leaves. Provides us some really awesome pink color in the landscape. And that pink color in that large amount is hard to find in the garden. And you can get that with some rosy teacups.
All right, guys, coming in here at number 15, we've got Cornus Kousa Snow Tower. This is a white flowering Chinese dogwood with a more narrow habit to it.
Yeah, typically getting about 10 to 12 feet in height, but half of that in its width, making it an easy tree to use out in the landscape. Often dogwoods are about the same width as they are in their height. This one, almost half of its width than its typical height. Makes it fit in small spaces and easier to use in the landscape and garden for a flowering white Cornus Kousa dogwood.
Great name. Beautiful white flowers to this one. Going to work zone 6 through 8, partial to full sun. Just a beautiful addition to the garden. I mean, this is a Kousa you can get out there. It's not going to take up a ton of room. So if you're looking for a limited space Kousa, but you want that vertical interest, Snow Tower is going to provide that, in a Kousa dogwood, which makes it super next level.
And it obviously gets that name because of the tower, because of its narrow shape, and snow because being coated with so many white blossoms. This is noted for being a Cornus Kousa selection that is a heavily prolific bloomer.
All right, guys, coming in here at number 14, we've got Bud Bundy's favorite, Cornus alba Bud's Yellow. Now, this is a yellow twig dogwood with some great winter interest. It's another one of those cutback shrub, yellow bark interest dogwoods that's going to provide a lot, especially in the winter garden.
And it has a yellow-green bark to it, maybe a little more yellow-green than something like Nanyat or Aoyagi, but with a dense, compact, shrub-like habit. During those winter months, this provides a lot of color out there in the landscape. Makes a great companion plant with that midwinter fire that we talked about earlier. Very similar in the fact that it creates some winter interest out there in the landscape. And those blooms on the Cornus alba are clustered, and they're kind of white with tinges of yellow to them.
They really provide a spark of color in the winter months. Again, I like to mass plant these with the same thing. Tim mentioned them for erosion control and the other. These are typically done as rooted cuttings as well, so you can do it as a cutback shrub pretty heavily and then get that extravagant new growth. These are kind of lime green yellow. I mean, that's really the best way to describe it. It's like a lime green yellow. Love the color on it. These are going to work zones 2 through 8. If you're not doing these as a heavy cutback shrub, typically a 6 to 8 foot size tree by about equally as wide. I like to do these as a cutback shrub, though, in mass plantings. Kind of just let that new growth go wild. I like to put all the same type together, like 3 to 4 of the same cutback, the red twig dogwoods, and then kind of just cut those back and let them do their own thing. I think that's one of the most interesting ways to kind of create focal point color and just dynamic color, especially in the winter months.
Now, coming to number 13, we've got one of the most popular dogwoods of them all. We've got Cornus Florida Cherokee Princess. This is a white blooming dogwood. My parents have one in their garden of a Cherokee Princess, and it is a beautiful flowering selection. One of the things that's noted about Cherokee Princess is it's one of those white flowering dogwoods, the Cornus Floridas, that bloom often before the leaves come out, early spring. But this one blooms at an earlier age. So you can get blooms on Cherokee Princess at even just 2 to 3 year old tree, which is really early for many dogwoods.
This one's going to work zone 6 through 8, typically around 8 to 10 foot in a 10-year span. Kind of a funny joke about this one. I have a lot of friends who are in Cherokee. We're not too far from Cherokee, North Carolina. And they're like, they get so tired of basically white people coming up to them and going, "Did you know my grandma's a Cherokee Princess?" So when we were doing the 10 at 10 on this one, I looked at Corbin. I said, "Do you know this one's named for my grandma?" He was like, "Oh no." Everybody's so tired of hearing that. It's kind of funny. Tim and I actually do have some Native American ancestry from this area, which is cool, but just something fun there for Cherokee. Now, this one is an amazing plant. Prolific bloomer. That's one of the great things about this as a Florida being a native plant. It's actually a prolific bloomer. Yeah, but don't go around telling everybody your grandma was but one of my best friends is Cherokee, and he says, "Did you know my grandmother was a European princess?" That's one of his favorite things to tell. My great-great-grandmother was a European princess.
All right, guys, coming in number 12, we got Cornus Florida Autumn Gold. Now, Autumn Gold is one of those unique selections that I haven't seen much else like it. You get beautiful white spring flowers that you love about dogwoods, but the leaves itself can give you some really nice pure yellow colors during the summer and during the fall. But when the leaves drop off, you got a yellow bark Cornus Florida.
we run out of names or something. We're like, hey, let's reuse autumn gold and summer gold. Plant world. We use those a lot. Guys, this one's so next level, though. Don't sleep on Cornus Florida autumn gold. I know when this one was here, my gosh, it sells out quickly, but a lot of our employees grabbed this one. We do have it in stock currently when I'm saying this, but this one's one that tends to be very, very popular, especially when you see it in person, because that foliage is dynamic. It's interesting. It's yellow. It's got a lot of uses in the landscape. Typically going to reach around 12 to 15 foot in 10 years. Again, another one I know a lot of breeders are working with for next level traits as well, because this one is already so next level in itself. I like that it kind of gets that orange to it too late. So that kind of fall color could hit a little bit more orange.
All right, guys, coming in at number 11, we've got an edible ornamental. We've got a Cornus officinalis Kentucky, which the Cornus officinalis is kind of like the Cornus moss. They have an amazing yellow clustered bloom in the early spring before everything else blooms in the garden. And it's one of the first blooming trees in the landscape, late winter, and it is amazing. I mean, just clustered yellow blooms all across the tree. It has bark almost like an Acer Grisham, which is pretty next level. And they developed these little cherry fruits on them that are extremely tasty. The Cornelian cherry dogwoods.
This whole blooming list has got blooming flowers on it. The Cornus officinalis are some of my favorite. Cornus moss, we just call them the Cornelian cherry dogwoods. Man, I could do a whole list of these. I could go down the rabbit hole and be a Cornelian cherry dogwood just aficionado. I think these are so fun, especially for maple growers, guys. These are plants that got everything. Like when they checked like hey, what are the credentials for this one? They checked off everything: bark, flowers, bark like an Acer Grisium, flowers that are amazing. They're kind of that harbinger of spring. It's one of the first trees to leaf out here. We have some Cornus officinalis here at the nursery, and I always tell our employees, when that thing's blooming yellow, we got 3 weeks till the maples leaf out. It's kind of like you can just about time it. You can about set your calendar by it. Like spring is here. The Cornelian cherry dogwoods are in flower. Very soon the maples will be in leaf. It kind of just always lets us know. It's got great fall color, and it's got edible interest to it. Like, I love the fruits. In European countries, especially in Ukraine, they're very popular for jams and jellies. So a lot of people grow these specifically for the fruits. I've joked about it before, but you don't need a whole bag of those things. I'll be walking around the nursery eating those things. They are delicious. They're like kind of between like a small tomato size and like a grape, but they have more of a sweet flavor. So they're red. They have like the sweet kind of almost like, sweet cherryish tart flavor to them. Absolutely delicious. I mean, you can get a bag of these and just go to town on them, but might get some juices flowing is all I'll say. Might wake up some things. Might be a little bit like some prune juice if you eat too many of them, but absolutely great plant. I think everybody should be growing Cornelian cherry dogwoods.
Now, the Cornus moss are the ones that are a little more native towards that Ukraine area, that European side of things. The Cornus officinalis, that's the Japanese Cornelian cherry dogwood. And Kentucky, the selection we're talking about, it's got a really nice form, shorter, denser habit, fits in a lot of people's gardens. Next level Cornus officinalis, awesome Cornelian cherry dogwood for those edible ornamental tree to have in your landscape and garden.
Next up at number 10, we've got Cornus cusa snuffleupagus.
Splendiferous.
Right. Variegated white Chinese dogwood, splendiferous. I like to call it snuffleupagus though, but.
Now, this is a uniquely variegated dogwood. And I say unique because every leaf, it can be variegated differently. Some leaves will have like a white margin variegation. Other leaves are going to have variegation sporadic across the leaf, and some will have a dusting across the leaf. It is a splendiferously variegated dogwood.
Sounds like some name you made up. Like Tim says swell and OG and all these old like 1950s saying, well, that sure is a Oakley dokley tree there, neighbor. Like he's always saying something like that. Sounds like you went to say splendid and you went splendiferous. I love it. 8 to 10 foot, zone 6 through 8. The variegation is cool. I mean, you get that swirling, you get some of that frosted look like that Aiden's Mint Frost. You get some of that like splotching like Tim was talking about. It really combines all variegated forms here into one, and the margin of the leaf can almost be a blue-green color too, which is unique to it. So it's a very unique looking plant, and each kind of leaf is just weird and different. So it's kind of fun one to photograph because it never really looks the same during each step.
Y'all, coming in at number 9, we've got Cornus Kousa Stellar Pink. And the pink on this, it's quite stellar.
Maybe the best pink dogwood. It's up there, guys. Stellar Pink is phenomenal. It really is one of the best pink dogwoods you'll ever grow.
Now, many of these pink blooming dogwoods, when they first bloom, when you get the bloom to first unfurl, often some of these pink blooming selections can actually be white, and then the pink comes into the bloom itself. So don't be surprised if your Stellar Pink leaves out Stellar White once the bloom. It's going to be turning pink as that bloom matures. And it has just a soft, bubbly appearance to the bloom, which is extremely showy. That baby pink is next level. Y'all, it's another tree that's brought to us by Rutgers University, and you're going to see a lot more of their introductions on this list.
All right, guys, moving quite along through the top 25 dogwoods of 2024 Customer Choice Awards. At number 8, we've got Cornus alba Red Gnome. Now, this is a dwarf red dogwood.
Yeah, it's one of those dwarf red twig dogwoods that just gives you that really nice winter interest on the bark, but it's really slow growing. In 10 years, reaching 3 to 4 feet in height by about 4 foot in width. It is amazing just as a slow growing, dense, compact selection.
Yeah, this one's going to work zones 2 through 8. Typically 3 to 4 feet tall. Now, you can use this one as a cutback shrub as well. These are typically done as rooted cuttings. You will find that as you get more mature plants, you cut them back, they will push out new growth faster. So as it gets a more mature root system to it, it'll make up that difference, that 3 to 4 feet a lot quicker. Beautiful colors on this. Looks great with the others. Again, I like to put these in cluster plantings where you can put several together and kind of create a dynamic contrast. Amazing for erosion, for filling out an area, but also for just adding kind of a border in that winter months that is a high interest.
And those blooms are really nice as well. And on the Cornus alba, those transition into berries that are good for the birds. And so this is a tree that'll be both good for you and good for the birds.
All right, man, coming in here next at number 7, maybe the best of all pink dogwoods, Cornus Kousa Radiant Rose. Now, this one is a hot pink flowering dogwood, zone 6 through 8. Some of the best pink blooms you'll ever see on a dogwood.
Now, don't be surprised, like I mentioned, with some of the other pink selections, if they start to bloom out white. But one of the things that's really nice about Radiant Rose is very quickly you start to getting pink coming into the bloom, and it takes over the bloom, and it is extremely beautiful. I mean, it's one of the most bold pink blooming dogwoods of them all.
It's one of the most rich pink colors you'll get. Like, it's full. It's really nice. This one's typically going to be 15 to 20 foot in 20 years. So again, another very strong grower, zone 6 through 8. The thing about Radiant Rose is it's just got some of the best flowers. I mean, if you like pink flowering Kousa dogwoods, Radiant Rose is going to be a must for you. Its blooms are just simply amazing, and it's got some of the fullest pink color. I mean, the richness of that pink is very bright, very dynamic, and it's going to make an amazing contrast in your spring garden.
And that's one thing I'm betting that on many of these pink dogwoods, we've offered so many of these on MrMaple.com this past year, more than we've ever offered, that people have actually had the opportunity to choose their favorite. And as you're seeing these pink towards the top, those are the real consumer choices on their favorite red dogwoods.
And it holds that rich pink very, very well throughout the summer as well. So it just kind of holds that later into the season. So all around, gosh, for bloom time, for quality of bloom, for bloom quantity, Radiant Rose got to be up there.
Guys, coming in at number 6, we've got another dwarf red twig dogwood. We've got Cornus alba Little Rebel.
Great colors on this one. I mean, you kind of get that fiery red to it. Really shows out. Again, this one's a cutback shrub, so it's one of those dogwoods that are rooted cuttings, 2 through 8, typically 3 to 4 feet, so a little smaller. Again, as they mature in the root and you cut these back, they will flush back out very quickly. This one is durable, and it gives everybody what they're looking for in that red twig dogwood. I mean, it is a red twig dogwood that's got red twigs that are dynamically colored.
And it is possibly one of the slowest growing of all the red twig dogwoods. And it was found as a chance seedling in Canada. And I'm telling you, this thing is going to go worldwide because it is easy to grow, it's easy to use, and it gives you that dynamic red twig color in those winter months. Guys, coming in next at number 5, we're all the way down to number 5, from 25 down to 5. We've got Cornus Cusa Satome, one of our highest ranked pink flowering dogwoods on this list.
Yeah, another one that's just going to be phenomenal, guys. Zone 6 through 8, typically 10 to 12 foot in that 10-year span, and one of the finest pink dogwoods. I mean, this one is mid to late spring with white blooms that'll appear across it, and then they quickly transition into that pinker phase, that rosy pink. Really a stunning display in the garden. I mean, it's going to start out again more white. It's interesting how the pink dogwoods kind of develop. A lot of people will get fooled with them in the early spring because they'll bloom out with that wider coloration, but it's kind of like those cool spring nights. They start to get that pink gloss to them.
And Cornus Cusa, many people call it the Chinese dogwood. That's the common name that's referred to, but there are some native Cornus Cusas to Japan, and this is a selection of one of those Cornus Cusa selections from that native species from Japan, and it's got that pink blooms to it. Next level, you don't see it very frequently in the trade anymore, and we've been trying to offer it more and more because it is one of the best pink dogwoods you can get.
Coming in here at number 4, we've got Cornus Cusa Little Poncho, a dwarf flowering Chinese dogwood. So this one's a little Chihuahua dog there. It's not quite as big as the rest. Typically 6 foot and 15 years by about 6 foot wide, having a real rounded canopy to it. This one's going to work zone 6 through 8. Really, what the selling point on this one is that nice small structure for a dogwood. So it's going to fit in a lot of smaller gardens, a lot of smaller spaces. It's going to give you dynamic red color, white blooms, but you're getting everything you love about a Cusa dogwood that's got a small dome canopy and a much smaller habit.
Yeah, it's got a good red fall color like you were mentioning. Those white blooms during the summer months, amazing on a dwarf dogwood. Many dogwoods you don't get that just blanket full of blooms, and with the Cornus Cusas, you can definitely get that blanket full of blooms, and on this one you can get it on a dwarf selection. Little Poncho, next level. The first time I got my hands on Little Poncho, I was freaking out because I saw a dwarf specimen in the landscape, and it just, when you realize you can get everything you love about Cornus Cusa in a small, compact form, there's not much else like it.
A little shocked here at number 3. Cornus capitatum Mountain Moon. So this is an evergreen Chinese dogwood, semi-evergreen in some of the colder places. These are actually going to work zone 6 through 9, but shocked to see it evergreen all the way up here at number 3. Kind of surprised me there a little bit.
It is surprising that we have this many dogwoods and an evergreen is at number 3. I agree with you. The evergreen dogwoods, the Cornus capitatas, are evergreen to semi-evergreen where we're at here in Western North Carolina. Sometimes they'll drop some of their leaves and retain some of their leaves as well. But they're in that Cornus Cusa family, and the fact that they've got a bloom just like your Cornus Cusa, and they bloom in those summer months, and they bloom prolifically with a bloom that looks like a Cornus Cusa.
Much smaller flower on this one. Another neat quality is they have that fleshy, kind of rounded fruit that resembles strawberries a little bit, so you get that as an ornamental quality as well. Smaller white blooms typically than your Cusa though, but prolific bloomer. You get a lot of clusters of those blooms when they bloom.
I've actually heard that Cornus Cusa berries are actually edible. Now, I don't know if you eat too many of them.
I've seen Piet de Jong eat them. We were in a garden one time in Europe, and Piet de Jong, who wrote Flora of China, somebody was like, "You can't eat these. Those are those Cusa dogwoods are poisonous. You shouldn't eat that." And he was like, "Wow, poppycock." He just started like 3 or 4 of them. So he lived. So I guess it's fine. Haven't tried it myself, but I saw him eat 3 or 4 of them in a row. Cusa.
All right, guys. Coming in at number 2, we have a Talon Buckholz introduction from the Buckholz Nursery. We have Cornus Cusa Summer Fun, and this is a beautiful white margin variegated Cornus Cusa dogwood with that clear white, thick margins, white blooms on it. It is a next level variegated dogwood.
Typically around 8 to 10 foot in 10 years. This one is one of our more heat tolerant ones as well. It's going to work zone 6 through 8, but it's done pretty good in a good bit of sun as a variegated creamy white. Absolutely love the fall colors on this one too. So this one can really show out, especially as you're getting into the fall months. It's very common for that green eye to be the dark, bold red, and then you have this pink, soft color on the white variegation. Really next level for the fall color. Durable, fast growing, all around just phenomenal plant.
And guys, we've made it all the way down to number 1 on our top 25 dogwoods of 2024. Any guesses on what this may be? Any guesses?
Probably a little harder than our maple list. You'll have to go check out our top 75 maples of 2025 if you haven't already. That top 25 is doing really well. A lot of people are checking that one out. No surprises there. Maybe some surprises here.
And we also recently shot our top 25 ginkgos of 2024. Go check that one out as well. Me and Sean went through and laid out every ginkgo from your Consumer Choice Awards.
All right, guys, coming here at number 1, we've got Cornus Cusa Venus. I want to play the old 80s, like I'm Your Venus song. Remember that one? Sean probably remembers it. Tim probably doesn't.
I remember the commercial. I think it was like a women's razor commercial.
Oh, come on. Now that's I don't know if that. I know the commercial talk about. That's a weird, awkward commercial. All right, guys, coming here at the number 1, we've got Venus. These are going to work zones 6 through 8, typically around 15 to 18 feet in that 20-year span. So vigorous grower. Now, what makes Venus stand out is it has some of the largest blooms of any Cusa. It has like 5 to 6 inch blooms. So you're going to get these large white blooms that are just elaborate. They really stand out in the garden. They make a presence, and that larger flower makes this one of the more popular dogwoods.
Yeah, I mean, the white bloom is what everyone looks for a dogwood. I mean, that's what you typically think of when you think of a dogwood tree. It's actually the state flower for North Carolina, the Cornus Florida. And you think about the bloom, you think about just this beautiful bloom. And when you can get that in a 5 to 6 inch bloom, that's amazing. Rutgers, this is another Rutgers hybrid, and it's one of those Rutgers hybrids that people just, it seems unreal because the bloom can be so big. It's the biggest bloom I've ever seen on a dogwood.
So it'll be really interesting to see how this list changes. We offer a ton of dogwoods. I know Tim mentioned to me, this is just the top 25. We've offered over 80 different dogwoods in 2024 on MrMaple. So a big, study-based amount here for you guys to pick from, and these are the top 25 of what you ordered. So this is where people put their money where their mouth is. This is what people were after. Really interesting, and it'll be interesting to see in 2025 and 2026 how this list changes. I know we have an introduction of columnar Cusa coming out at MrMaple and Buckholz, so it's going to be a real game changer for a very narrow habit. Something to look forward to. We'll also be offering more and more of Elton Lyle's Cornus Florida broom selection, so it'll be a dwarf compact form there. So it'll be interesting to see how those impact the market, if those work their way up the list. An Area 51 dogwood in the works. Some really cool stuff, though, on this list, though. I mean, we do a lot more than just Japanese maple. So if you haven't checked out that other section on MrMaple, we do a ton of cool dogwoods. Kind of surprising how many dogwoods we actually offer in a year. And some big numbers. We actually sell a good bit of these.
So if you're looking for a dogwood, look no further than the guys at MrMaple. That may sound confusing, but we offer the largest selection of dogwoods online. And we've got some of the coolest, most interesting varieties. When it comes to dogwoods, look at MrMaple.
Yeah, they come back frequently. Maybe we should call ourselves Mr. Dogwood. That'd be pretty cool. Mr. Dog. All right, guys, the dogwoods are amazing. They're plants that we love them as southern gardeners, as northern gardeners. They're popular all over the United States for so many good reasons. They add bloom texture. They add interest. Some of these add bark interest. They add great fall color. They do so many amazing things. You'll find it just on MrMaple.com under the icon Dogwoods. We've got that there. And it's constantly changing. So many of these will be coming back to 10 at 10s throughout the year. So again, I mentioned it earlier, but if you see a dogwood that you just can't live without on this list, sign up to get notified via email. There'll be a place to get notified via email under any of the individual cultivar pages. But do follow our 10 at 10s because these come back frequently and typically in pretty decent numbers.
Thank you all so much for jumping into today's podcast. Check us out on YouTube as well. Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.